Norovirus is spreading, including in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the northeastern United States. You have probably heard about norovirus outbreaks on cruise ships, and how the outbreaks just get worse and worse. It turns out many people try to eradicate norovirus with the wrong products. Let's review what works to protect you and stop norovirus from spreading in your household. Norovirus outbreaks can occur on ships or from restaurants or in schools. It is very infectious and spreads in confined spaces. Someone can shed billions of viral particles in stool or vomit, but it only takes 20 particles, also known as virions, to be ingested to cause an infection. Immunity to norovirus is mostly only towards a specific strain, so it can come back year after year like the flu. There are nearly 30 strains of norovirus along with variants. A vaccine is not yet available, but there is ongoing testing of vaccine candidates in 2024. Final approval is therefore still a ways off. Interestingly, having blood type B is associated with a lower risk of infection with norovirus. That's kind of like sickle cell hemoglobin in red blood cells, which is thought to convey some advantage against malaria evolutionarily. Now, what evolutionary advantages does norovirus have? Well, it's an RNA virus without an envelope, meaning it doesn't have host cell membrane. Having an envelope means having low resistance to desiccation, heat, alcohols, or detergents, limiting survival of virus particles outside their host. Instead, norovirus has a tough icosahedron made of protein, like one of the Dungeons & Dragons dice with many sides. So let's think about these viral particles in the environment. Is hand sanitizer best? Well, if you have an enveloped virus, the alcohol will disrupt the membrane envelope to some extent and cause the protein structures to denature or lose their structure. That would be effective at neutralizing a virus. Unfortunately, though, since norovirus lacks an envelope, alcohol is not effective. Nor is it effective against the tight capsid. How about soap? Again, not effective against the tight protein capsid. Does that mean soap is not helpful in the fight against norovirus? No, hand soap helps flush virions away and off your hands so you don't ingest them. Norovirus is like another GI infection, Clostridium difficile, a type of diarrhea that commonly happens after taking antibiotics. In that case, instead of a capsid, there is a protective spore that resists inactivation by alcohol. Just like with norovirus, hand washing is key to getting rid of C. diff spores by mechanically removing them from your hands rather than inactivation. So we now have two important observations about dealing with norovirus. 1. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers are not very effective. 2. Soap and water are good for hand washing. How about bleach? Bleach is very effective at inactivating norovirus. In fact, it is the preferred chemical to clean environmental surfaces. Bleach causes oxidation of the protein in the capsid. You might wonder, would hydrogen peroxide do that as well? And the answer is yes. Fortunately, bleach is cheap and multi-use and likely in stock in your home. Hydrogen peroxide should be stocked in your home as well in the medicine cabinet, although it also has other uses, such as a treatment for root rot in overwatered plants. A few cents to save a 2020 plant, definitely Dr. Scrounge approved. Bleach and hydrogen peroxide could cause discoloring, so make sure they are properly diluted and safe to use where you plan on using them. You may want to test a small area to start. So here are two more important observations. 3. Bleach is very effective at inactivating norovirus. 4. Hand washing is very important in combating norovirus outbreaks. And finally, what about heat and drying? So there is no envelope, and thus drying doesn't help much. Norovirus can stay on objects and surfaces and still infect people for days or weeks. A lot of norovirus comes from eating oysters. Oysters cook quickly, which means norovirus on oysters doesn't face as much heat. Raw oysters are particularly risky. Other raw foods that are common sources of norovirus are fruits and vegetables. Norovirus has a seasonal pattern with greater prevalence in the winter. This could be because people are spending more time indoors, with a greater potential to come into contact with virions. Lower humidity and cooler temperatures also help the virus survive longer on surfaces. Also, there may be an effect of lower vitamin D levels, making people somewhat more resistant. So let's add a couple more important takeaways. 5. Fruits and vegetables and other foods should be washed well during an outbreak of norovirus. 6. It might be helpful to have good vitamin D levels in the winter when there is a norovirus epidemic, in addition to many other reasons. To recap the important takeaways. 1. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers are not very effective. 2. Soap and water are good for hand washing. 3. Bleach is very effective at inactivating norovirus.